We are about to see a settlement ratified that is going to end the legal dispute between the ACC, Florida State, and Clemson, and that settlement could get agreed upon as soon as Tuesday.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about how the ACC tournament is shaping up and the NCAA tournament picture in terms of where the ACC stands in basketball. Plenty of big picture and football stuff, though, to talk about. So, Kenton, we've heard hints about this for several weeks, and it looks like this is going to be approved tomorrow by the Florida State boards and the Clemson boards to agree to this settlement that is going to end the legal dispute between the ACC and those schools. And, Kenton, I'll let you start with this. Like, we're going over the details on this, and, like, you could paint it in certain ways as like a partial win for the ACC, but I feel that Florida State and Clemson are getting a much bigger dub from what we understand about this settlement when you compare to the ACC. I think the schools are winning here.
I see incompetence, nepotism, and cowardice tearing the ACC apart. The ACC is going to die on the vine most likely in 2031, and it'll be no one's fault but its own.
Yeah.
I am very genuinely confused by what has happened at this point. Now, the incompetence and nepotism, that was way back with Swafford and somehow getting us over to Raycom, which, again, his son worked there, and nobody was like, hey, something ain't right here. The math doesn't math. We need to go elsewhere. But from there, it led us down this road to where now, when it was time for the ACC to stand up and say, hey, we got to protect ourselves, they go with the ultimate move of cowardice. And there has to be, I get it. Donno and myself and anybody who's super close to this thing but not tied up in the legality of it, none of us know every detail. But I am assuming that there has to be a detail from ESPN that says, hey, if either one of these schools leave, we're out. If either one of these schools are going, we're out. Because I'm trying to wrap my mind around the deal is the deal. The deal runs through 2036. And instead of saying, hey, the deal is the deal. If y'all want to go ahead. We still get our money. Y'all got to pay us out too. More power to you. Like, we're still going to be a 16-team league. Instead of that, it's this, oh, no. We're going to tuck our tails and go immediately. We're going to get out of the courts as soon as we can. We're going to settle in this moment. Which, again, I'm very confused by. I'm very confused by because, again, you gave them what they wanted to begin with. And, again, this is where the cowardice comes in again. Because to start off, when they came up with the Success Initiative, what did I say? If you start now, this ain't going to stop. This won't be enough to make them happy. You come up with the Success Initiative and the exact scenario I pitched. One of these schools has a terrible year. They don't make that money, which means they don't bridge the gap. And, of course, Florida State had the perfect sequence to have them have this type of deal. You have a playoff snub in this year. You go forward and have a 2-10. You're putting up tour dates in terms of wins and losses the next year. And then immediately after that, you have this moment where, again, the lawsuits start rolling, and when the ACC inks their deal, locks it in long term, all of a sudden, they're in court not saying, hey, you got to come see me. We're going to handle this thing. We're going to see this thing through to the end. It's like, we'll give you most of the stuff you want. My question, if I could talk to the ACC and their lawyer, what possibly could have gone on to make this make sense? I would love to have Jim Phillips on the show. When I saw him in person at the ACC or at the Dukes Mayo kickoff, he said he'd love to come on the show. Jim, come on the show. I need to know.
We got to reach out again and make this happen. Otherwise, the next time we'll talk to him would be July 22nd when ACC football media days open up. And I can't wait that long to get some answers. He'll be asked about it a ton on July 22nd, but I don't think I can wait that long.
Oh, I can't either. But you know what? If I got to, you best believe you already know who the first hand in press row is going to shoot up when they start to ask the question, because I need to know what made this make sense. Yeah. What did the ACC gain that it stood to lose if you saw this through? I'm genuinely confused. But again, this type of cowardice is not new to the ACC. It just isn't. As much as I would like to say, man, I could have never seen this type of thing coming. When everybody started talking about, yeah, settlements are probably on the way, it's probably on the way. And I reached out to the folks who said, yeah, settlement's probably likely. I was shocked. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. And yet here we are in this moment.
Now, I'm hoping once this settlement is finalized, and again, this could be as soon as tomorrow on Tuesday. Once it's finalized, I'm hoping that Freedom of Information Act requests that we can actually see copies of this to know exactly, because we only know what's being reported and rumored right now. There could be some key details missing, but let's take a look at, and Pete Thamel from ESPN, who's one of the better college football reporters, college sports reporters out there, outlined some of the big details. So we talk about the Success Initiative and the Brand Initiative. The Success Initiative rewards you extra money for winning in football, reaching certain milestones. Did you make a bowl game? Did you win an ACC championship? Did you make the college football playoff? How far did you advance in the playoff? That's in the, and they also count basketball success to that. The Brand Initiative means how big were your TV ratings, right? Where the bigger brands, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and a few others can potentially make extra money through the Brand Initiative. So Thamel outlines that 40% of the TV money is distributed evenly among legacy ACC schools. That means like the original 14, right? SMU, Cal, Stanford get a lesser share because that was part of their agreement to join later. So actually less than half of the TV revenue is distributed evenly. Then 60% is based on their ratings formula over your previous 5 years. Over a 5-year period, how are your TV ratings? He also notes top ACC earners could net more than 15 million. I think that means 15 million extra, while some schools will see a net deduction in annual payout of about 7 million. Now, on the smaller members who don't have as much success on TV and all that, they unfortunately don't have a lot of leverage like the Wake Forest and the Boston Colleges of the world, because again, they don't really have a better option, going to another conference, and it's in their benefit to see the ACC stay together for at least another 5 years. So they didn't have any leverage. They had to agree to that. But here, to me, Kenton, this is the most important part of it, where you and I both feel like the ACC gave up too much here. Because again, we talked about this a few weeks ago. ESPN locked in their option for ACC TV rights through 2036. Yet the ACC has capitulated, and this important bullet point here that Pete Thamel notes, the total cost to exit the league after the 29-30 academic year is expected to drop to below $100 million. And my understanding is it will drop a little bit more each subsequent year. So a little less than 100 million in 2030, even less than that, 2031, 2032, and so on. 2031 is the most important year because that's the year that all of the other TV contracts are up, right? Big 10, SEC, Big 12 deals are all up in 2031. So if they're going to add more teams, any of those conferences, 2031 would be the year to do it. So to me, Kenton, like the ACC, they only bought themselves an extra 5 or 6 years here. I thought they gave up way too much because, again, like once that exit fee, and the important part of this, Thamel didn't articulate it so well in that bullet point. I mean, he did a fantastic job. But so one of the things that Florida State and Clemson really wanted is they wanted a set exit fee, right? Like what's an exact dollar amount we can pay to leave the ACC was never willing to give them that, right? It's some complicated formula of the TV rights until 2036. They could never give them a dollar amount. Part of this settlement is giving them an exact dollar amount each year of what it's going to cost to leave. They're going to have that after this settlement tomorrow. So theoretically, 2031, this could all blow up. Like, congratulations, Jim Phillips and your lawyers. You bought yourself maybe 6 years to keep this thing together.
Could blow up. No, this is done. Let's do the math on this, Donno. 29-30, 30-31, 31-32, 32-33, 33-34, 34-35, 35-36. How many years is that, Donno?
You're holding up 7 fingers, so I'm going to say 7.
We got 7. The cost
Okay.
is the cost is under $100 million. Let's say it brushes up so close to $100 million. There's like $100,000 difference between what gets paid out and 100. Let's round up and be very generous to the ACC and say, oh, it's basically for all intents and purposes $100 million. $100 million over 7 years, Donno. If you divide that up, that is under $20 million per year.
I see.
What did they have pictures of the lawyers and Phillips in very compromising positions or something? What happened here? This feels like watching the Louisiana Purchase go down in real time. Like I'm sitting here genuinely confused on what actually happened. And a lot like our history books omit certain things about the Louisiana Purchase. And hey, these people have advanced weaponry. You probably want to give them that. They're going to take it anyway type of deal. There must be something here that we got to be missing something, because my mind is still trying to wrap its way around this. Because again, this settlement to me is all of the things that we discussed as possibilities in the settlement.
All right. Yep.
That we said, hey, if things were looking like they were going in Clemson and Florida State's favor, these things would probably be the things that the outcome would be. All of them have come to pass, plus some.
Yeah.
Plus some. Because you and I, even though we knew, hey, it is a possibility that the date will move in for, hey, you'll have a lower bound, whatever the case may be. Neither one of us knew that $100 million was coming in. This is a black eye for the ACC, to say the least. And again, it's not if these teams decide to leave in 2030 and whatnot. It's a win. It's a win because there's no reason to stop them, or there's no reason for them not to leave if they want more money in other countries.
I mean, the only reason why they may not leave, like why I'm not 100% sold that they leave, is of course, like, teams in the Big Ten and SEC would have to agree to share their payout with more schools, but their media deals are up at that same year. So theoretically, they would get bigger media deals when they renote. So they're going to leave. And so I guess like the only way you could paint any of this is like a loss for Florida State and Clemson, probably more to their fans than like to their actual lawyers, because their lawyers and trustees probably understood this the whole time. Fans were spreading rumors about different things. Like the only negative here is like you have to stay in the ACC for a few more years at least, right? Where some of their fans thought, hey, next year we're off to the Big Ten or SEC. Like, okay, you're stuck for a few more years, but you kind of have your cake and eat it too, because you're getting increased revenue within the ACC. And then in 5 years' time, 6 years' time, you have the opportunity to waltz away. Now, I want to continue this conversation on the other side. And the thing is, like Florida State and Clemson, obviously, they're the ones who have been fighting. They're the biggest winners here, but they're not the only winners here. We'll explain when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And you're always a winner when you use Roy. Attention, Locked On ACC fans. You ever wish you could directly support your favorite athletes at your favorite ACC school and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy. Roy is the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you and me didn't have a clear way to directly support the players that we love. But now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing your favorite school. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and then get exclusive content straight from the athletes that you back. And the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of your favorite teams. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing your favorite athletes the way that they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton, Gibbs, and Grayson Boone host Locked On Wolfpack, bringing you everything NC State. I host Locked On Canes, bringing you all things Miami Hurricanes. And Kenton leads me into my next point here. I feel like arguably maybe the biggest winners here, even more so than Clemson and Florida State, are the next two biggest brands in the ACC, Miami and UNC. And the reason why I'm saying that is they get to reap the same exact benefits that Florida State and Clemson are getting here with these new initiatives, but they didn't have to go to court, get involved in 4 different lawsuits, pay millions of dollars in legal fees. Now, North Carolina actually did pay some in the 6 figures in legal fees to kind of explore things, but they didn't have the legal entanglements that Florida State and Clemson had. Florida State and Clemson also, they got branded as like disruptive partners for doing this. And so I think Miami and UNC probably owe those schools like maybe a thank you card of doing all this, because one of the misconceptions out there, Kent, that I see people talking about this on social media, some people are saying that like the ACC is only giving extra money in like a blanketed way just to Florida State and Clemson. I mean, those do happen to be like the biggest brands over the past, 5+ years, but every school has the same opportunity. And actually, Georgia Tech had the highest combined TV ratings last year. Miami had the highest average TV ratings last year. So you have other brands. UNC considered a big brand. They have the same opportunities at these brand and success initiatives that Florida State and Clemson have, and they didn't have to go through the blood, sweat, and financial tears to get there. So I would say this is a big dub for other schools as well.
Oh, absolutely. But the only thing that I would say, I'm not super sold on, hey, you're huge winners coming out of this, is how loyal is your fan base? How loyal are the people watching? Because we're not talking about, with all due respect, even with Miami, right? Miami had a fantastic year last year. They won 10 games, correct?
Yeah.
How many times has Miami won 10 games since, let's say, 2010?
There was, I think maybe two times, I want to say, since 2010, 2017, and last year.
Does Miami typically have high ratings even during down years?
TV ratings, yeah. Filling stadiums, not so much, but yeah.
If that's the case, then you're good to go. And the same thing can be said for UNC about, hey, if you can muster the ratings, you're good to go. You're going to be those brands. And I think that there's a very interesting thing to be said here about which ACC teams are not having success in terms of viewership because they are not traditionally, or because they just don't have the fan base, or because the ways in which the ACC displays its games as is, right? Yeah. Where you got to get Bally Sports, which is now, what did they rename that now?
Oh, I think it's FanDuel Sports now.
FanDuel Sports. You got to get the FanDuel Sports app.
Yeah.
And not the one where you do your betting, a different one where you can
not the one that's TV. On the front page of all my bookmarks. The other one. Exactly.
Donno's a degenerate, ladies and gentlemen. He's still on. But in all seriousness, it does beg that question. And with that, not only are we looking at the potential for Miami and UNC to be winners, we're looking at the potential for more teams to come out and say, hey, this is who we are. This is who our ratings are. This is who we want. And some teams whose chest is big and bad saying, oh, we can go other places and all these other. Well, it's going to be time to show and prove very quickly. Y'all got about 5 years to get right, church, and let's go home.
You know what? That's a great point, because if anything, and I'll say, okay, we've kind of discovered a hidden win for the ACC here. This gives clear incentive for every university in your conference to invest more into athletics, right? Because if you invest more, theoretically, you're putting a more competitive product on the field and on the hardwood. And then theoretically, you're potentially earning more success in your competitions, earning higher ratings. So like for the ACC, if anything else, because Kenton, I always felt that like the equal revenue distribution model I thought it was a little bit unfair, like to teams like in Florida State and Clemson, especially Clemson over the last 6 or 7 years, have typically been at the very top, kind of carrying the conference. So
Yeah,
is it really fair that, Clemson and Florida State make the same revenue that Wake Forest makes? Like, does that give, some of the bottom dwellers, does that really give them incentive to put better products on the court? Right now everyone has more incentive to try and be competitive. So I guess you can paint that as a win for the ACC.
But there's another problem even in that.
Yeah.
Your delineation between the haves and the don't haves.
Yeah.
There's going to be the bottom half of your conference is going to get paid less than the bottom half of everybody else's conference.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's going to be by a mile. Even when we talk about the Big 12 and say, hey, we're paying out more than you. Oh, really? How about you ask Boston College if you're paying out more? Ask those boys in Winston-Salem. Go up to Charlottesville. Ask them, are you paying more? We don't necessarily think so. We don't necessarily agree. Sure, your fat cats are living high on the hog. Your Florida States of the world, your Clemsons of the world. But again, congratulations to Florida State and Clemson. Congratulations. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because you've done your bit. You have got away with a massive win here in ACC. I would simply ask, at what cost did this win come? At what cost did this, or not win, but this settlement come?
I've got a theory. I think the ACC lost a game of chicken where I think they really felt like, and you covered ACC media days last year as I did, and it kept, like, the lawsuits kept getting brought up, and all these stories have been written about what a mess the ACC is because they're getting sued by multiple members. Like, I think at the end of the day, I think the ACC probably felt more pressure. Let's get a settlement done so we can put this behind us and we can be in unity for, X number of years moving forward. Where Florida State and Clemson maybe we're willing to keep the fight going a little bit longer. Like, we don't care if we're making you look bad. We're trying to get out. So maybe the ACC lost the game of chicken. They swerved because they thought, hey, we just don't want this cloud of lawsuits hanging over our head any longer.
Well, now's not the time to pull a LiAngelo Ball and swerve in that corner. Whoa, this ain't the moment. This is the moment where they were not supposed to blink. This was the moment where they were supposed to stare down and say, you know what? We've made mistakes up till now. Now is the time for us to kind of create an environment where we can come out as winners. Now is the time for us to say, we're going to put our foot down and we're going to win something now. We're going to put our foot down and we're going to say, we have the advantage. We have the upper hand. This was their moment to do that. And like you said, they swerved. Like you said, they blinked. They said, oh, man, we're not sure that we can do this. And again, it will be the ACC's demise. It will be the ACC's demise. I'm not saying that this is the first domino or the biggest to fall, but we will look back at this moment and say it was one of the most pivotal in the destruction of the ACC. And I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that, 5-6 years from now, I hope that when your little one goes to college, we're still seeing the ACC standing strong with all of its members that are currently there right now. I have a very, very, very strong suspicion that will not be the case. Because again, all of these things that you gave up, all of them directly harm the ACC in a very meaningful way right away. And by right away, I mean within the next 5 years. We'll see.
In 5 years, you and me, we're going to be sending copies of our resumes to Drake Toll to see if we can merge with Locked On Big 12, because we're not going to have a league to cover anymore. By the way, there's one more detail that we're all going to need to find out. So, with the brand initiative that is going to give higher payout based on television ratings, that's one of the key factors here. But they got to figure out how they define success on ACC Network. Because, the ACC Network does not subscribe to Nielsen ratings. So you can't, when you have games on the ACC Network, you don't know for sure how many thousands or millions of people are watching because they don't get the Nielsen numbers. So they got to figure that one out, because obviously the ACC Network, they want to have the best possible games. They want to make sure at least once, twice a year, they're getting the biggest brands on their network, but then those brands don't want to be hurt by the brand initiative because they don't subscribe to the rating. So they have to figure out a way to define that.
And let's also talk about even when they do figure that part out, the books are cooked for the bigger brands. If what the Notre Dame deal is allegedly true and that they're going to be playing the same 3 to 4 ACC teams, what just happened to everybody's average rating in comparison to theirs?
Yeah.
What just happened?
Downward. Yeah, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I read both the ESPN and Yahoo reports today, and they both did mention that part of that settlement is expected to be Florida State, Clemson, and Miami will, play more games against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to play 2 out of those 3 every single year, which is a huge advantage for them.
And again, you talk about, well, hey, who's got the most viewers? If they already have the most views, you don't have to cook the books for them, which in essence that is.
Yeah.
It's like saying, who can get more people to come on their show? Donno on Locked On Canes or me on Locked On Wolfpack? Oh, by the way, Locked On Wolfpack is having Taylor Swift tomorrow. There may be an outlier in my viewership for some odd reason.
By the way, can I do a quick promo? While you have Taylor Swift tomorrow, I will be counter programming you with Bryant McKinney is going to be joining Locked On Canes tomorrow.
Offensive lineman, as big of a hit as Taylor Swift, I'm sure.
In 4 years at Miami, he didn't allow a single sack.
He played for the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL, correct?
He did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that all of us NFC North lovers are going to be there because there are many of us as there are Swifties. That's why both groups have equally convenient nicknames. You see. So, this just feels like the ACC completely gave up and gave in. Yeah. And my question is, what happened to make it be this lopsided of a settlement? Because there's nothing in here that I say, man, yeah, I guess that is a tough pill for Florida State or Clemson to swallow. Nothing. When you break down the difference in money, right? How much is the difference between the ACC and the Big Ten or the SEC right now? What's the actual difference?
Oh, like more than 20 million, right?
Okay, so if it's upwards of 20 million, you gave them 15. You gave both of these schools 15 each. Okay, so in essence, even when you would account for if you left scot-free, and for whatever reason, one of those conferences decided to pay you as a full member right away, you'd only be making $5 million.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they got that without having to pay anything except lawyer fees?
Well, just to be clear, FSU is not going to get all that if they go 2-10 again next year. Like they gotta start winning games again.
I don't think they're gonna go 2-10 next year. I don't think they're good next year, but I don't think they're gonna be 2-10 back. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where I'm sitting up here legitimately just like this is unparalleled. And like you said, there will be some teams who benefit, but I think many more teams will lose out than benefit. Just do the math. If certain schools get plus 15 and certain schools get -7, in order to make up for 1 plus 15, how many -7s must you do,
Donno? 2 -7s?
Yes, you need at least 2.
I hate when you ask me math questions on the spot. I start to sweat.
I'm sorry. The numbers are kind of my thing, but you get the point. Here. I'm sitting here so confused. Like for every one of those teams that you decide, hey, they have made enough that we're going to pump them up 15, 2 of your teams will be very negatively hurt. Even for the teams who don't raise to the level of 15. If a team raises to the level of 10 or 7, somebody else has to lose in order to make that win feasible. So you didn't help the conference to me. If anything, you have greatly undercut yourself. Yeah. Which again, this is why I will say congratulations to Florida State and Clemson. Y'all won. You won.
Yeah, agreed.
And just like Offset when he was talking to Carter B, he said, "You my BM, I won." That's what Florida State and Gibbs can say to the ACC. Hey, you gave us everything we wanted in 7. I won.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk a little basketball on the other side. Syracuse has avoided missing the ACC tournament, which would have looked really bad for them. So they are locked into the ACC tournament. We have updated percentages on the bubble teams for the ACC to get into the NCAA tournament. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. It's funny because when Kenton asks me like math questions, I usually freeze up. But if you ask me to calculate VIGs and odds, I turn into Rain Man. Like I when it comes to betting, I am an expert on all this math, and I enjoy the action that I get at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or I'm picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. So, Kenton, the Syracuse Orange have locked up an ACC tournament berth. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament, but it was interesting the way this played out over the weekend because Syracuse had two paths to lock up their ACC tournament spot. They could beat Virginia Tech, which they didn't do, or they needed both NC State, Kenton, and Boston College to lose the same night, and both of those things happened. So Syracuse is safe in the ACC tournament. Unfortunately, my Miami Hurricanes are the only team that has for sure clinched a missing of that tournament. 15 out of the 18 teams will get in. And then also, would you like to know, I'm looking at some ESPN bracketology stuff for the bubble. The ACC has, 3 teams that are on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. They're going to get 3 in for sure. Duke Blue Devils in. Clemson Tigers in. Louisville Cardinals in. Now, the teams that are on the bubble, SMU, North Carolina, and Wake Forest in that order. So Wake Forest has now fallen down the pecking order, Kenton. SMU is given a 47% chance to make the tournament. North Carolina, a 34% chance. And Wake Forest down to 31%. Now, one thing that annoys me is even though I guess it's just going to be which one of them get in because the ACC is going to get 4 teams in. So one of them is going to get in, but I don't like how all of those teams are below 50% in getting in.
I mean, at the end of the day, the resumes are the resumes. You need to – we are down as a conference this year, which I've acknowledged. I've acknowledged plenty of times on this show. I've said, hey, this is a abnormally bad year. I am interested to see when the tournament hits, will we once again see the ACC outperform what everybody believed this conference was? That's going to be big for me. But more importantly, to what you were talking about there, where we have 3 teams on the bubble, all 3 below 50%. Yeah. Well, damn, can any of y'all go out there and get you a quad one win?
Well, and I think the reason why they're all below 50% is because they're contending with each other. Like, one of them's going to get in. It's just, none of them have that certain futures to get in.
I mean, I look at these teams and I say to myself, hey, none of y'all have done yourselves the greatest service in terms of, hey, we have a Teflon resume. You have never seen a team with our type of resume miss out before. Nobody's done that. Nobody's done that. And y'all know me. I'm a big, big, big proponent of win your damn games. If you are supposed to be something special, if you are supposed to do something special, win your damn games. And these teams have not done enough to guarantee themselves a path to the NCAA tournament. But I will tell you this, as somebody who is an NC State alum and saw a team go from firmly out to where nobody thought that we would do anything, even if we came up short in the tournament in and of itself, we might not have made the NIT to making the NCAA tournament because of a great performance in the ACC tournament. That all of y'all got that. You got that opportunity. Donno's Canes, my Wolfpack, and I believe the Boston College Eagles are probably not going to have that opportunity. All the rest of y'all got that. Figure it out.
We went from just within the last couple of years, hopefully this is just kind of an ebb and flow type of thing and the ACC can climb back, but we go from a couple of years removed from being regarded as the best basketball conference to talking about 4 teams making the NCAA tournament. The SEC is expected to get 11. 11 teams in the tournament compared to the ACC's 4. And so here's the thing, like, this is not a coincidence, Kenton, that it's played out this way so quickly, and why I really hope the ACC can get their you-know-what together here. Now, one thing is obviously the coaching, right? You've had several Hall of Fame caliber ACC coaches retire within the last couple of years. That has an effect. But I think the bigger effect is, and you don't see this even quite as much in football because it's, it takes a lot more players to completely turn around a roster. And basketball only takes a couple players. But the NIL disparity between what SEC programs are spending. So I really hope ACC programs pony up, because the NIL difference, obviously you see it in football as well. We all know the SEC and the Big Ten's reputations, but I think it's made an even bigger difference in basketball, that if you're really willing to pony up and spend big on a roster, it makes such a tremendous difference. And so you see the difference. The SEC spending, I mean, almost all their teams are in or on the bubble. Like everyone in the SEC, you're going to make the NCAA tournament, where in the ACC, only 15% of our teams are getting in. NIL has as much to do with that as anything else.
The NIL part of this absolutely is a factor, but at the same time, some of these coaches, you just got to be better.
Yeah.
You just got to be better. You're not going to tell me that Louisville has an endowment that towers over everybody else's, or not an endowment, but NIL spending that towers over everybody else's. You're not going to tell me that in this world that we live in, every single one of these teams is beholden to, hey, we can't pay players or we can. You can't tell me that, because when I look around at what has happened just a year ago, a team that's missing the tournament was in the Final Four.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that. So what I'm seeing, yes, NIL is a large part of it, absolutely. But what I'm also seeing is, again, coaches not getting it done. The job that's been done by the coaches in the ACC has been subpar. We have seen plenty of teams in the ACC that are on the bubble, per se, that lose games that you cannot lose. I'm looking at you, Wake Forest, losing to NC State. You cannot do that. That's a terrible NC State team. This is going to be historically one of the worst in program history. You can't lose that team. You can't do it. And if Forbes is saying, oh, well, the NIL is why we can't get it done, congratulations, because you're in the same boat as Kevin Keats, who's constantly complaining about NIL not being the reason he got it done this year. So, again, at some point in time, these coaches got to, I'm a huge believer of, and I said this on Locked on Wolfpack, when you blame external factors, you take away your internal power to fix a thing. And that's something that, yes, NIL matters. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like, a rose going from concrete is great, but a rose that you put in the garden is probably going to bloom a lot faster, a lot better, a lot fuller. We all know that. But at a certain point in time, y'all can't keep coming to me with these results saying, oh, yeah, fans just aren't giving enough. Okay, well, figure it the hell out with what you got. Figure out something better.
And then fans are going to want to give you more. If you give fans a better product, then they're going to invest. That's just the way it goes.
Hey, now, who could have thought?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate Kenton, as always. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for making Locked on ACC your first listen and your first watch. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button, like and subscribe to our channel. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked on ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
We should have a Crown and Scepter initiative for Florida State and Clemson.